Welcome to Canadian Agriculture Unpacked. I'm your host, Bob Friesen. Just a reminder, if you've eaten today, thank a farmer. Our two co-hosts are otherwise occupied today, but our special guest today is Matt Enright, who is the Vice Chair of the Western Canadian Shortline Railway Association, as well as the General Manager of Battle River Shortline. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
Matt, you're just back from a really important golf tournament. How did you do?
We had a lot of fun, Bob. That would be the way to put it. So we didn't have our best golf game, but we did enjoy the day.
Oh, well, that sounds good. You know, much to my own embarrassment, I haven't even had a game this year yet. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago who had already golfed 100 games this summer, and I'm a little short of that, as my score would show as well. In fact, I have given up hope that I will ever be able to shoot my age, but that's a subject for another show. Anyway, Matt, tell us a little bit about the Western Canadian Shortline Railway Association.
Yeah, sure. So Shortline Association, I think, started as the Saskatchewan Shortline Association and has grown over the years. Kind of when my railroad, so I'm based in Alberta, is the Battle River Railway. I think we were one of, or if not the first, Shortline to join the association from outside of Saskatchewan. And we've now grown to, we have 20 Shortline members. I think 40 supplier members. So that's, companies that provide services, materials for short lines. And we're looking to grow into and add industrial railways as members into the future.
So you haul more than just grain, is that it?
Yeah, my railroad hauls more than just grain, and so does probably every member railway that we have. Most of their short lines kind of started in Western Canada would have started with a model of being grain dependent. But over the years, we've all diversified our revenue streams to have other customers that move other products. And probably a large thing for a lot of short lines in Western Canada would be also rail car storage, which is a business that probably didn't exist 15 years ago for short lines, but it's become a large portion of the revenues for a lot of short lines. Okay,
so you're the Western Canadian Shortline Association. Are there short lines in Eastern Canada? I know. And it's too bad Wayne Easter couldn't be on the show as well, because he's somewhat familiar with Shortline Railway, and probably through his work, his 28-year work in the House of Commons, he got to know Shortlines quite well, because he was really involved in agriculture during that time. But there are Shortlines in Eastern Canada, are there?
There absolutely, yeah. Yeah, there's Shortlines everywhere. Everywhere there's rail, there's usually some Shortlines that go along with it. There's lots in Ontario, Quebec, and even throughout the Maritimes. We have got to meet some of them through, like CN just had a Shortline conference in Montreal in May that I was able to attend and got to meet. It's for all their Shortline, CN partner Shortlines throughout North America. Got to meet with a bunch from Quebec, Ontario, and the United States as well. But yeah, they're everywhere there's rail, there's usually short lines. Short lines are really good kind of first, last mile operators. Can provide a lot of flexibility for customers. And probably, if you're an industry looking to set up and you're on the smaller side, but if you're using rail, you're usually fairly large. But on the smaller scale, you probably prefer to be on a short line just from the service you can receive from your short line operator.
Okay, now we're going to get into how short lines came about, but tell us a little bit about Battle River.
Yeah, so we're headquartered in Forceburg, Alberta. We bought the rail line from CN in 2010, and it runs from just outside of Camrose, Alberta, down southeast to Alliance. It's actually a perfectly straight line. We have no curves on our rail line. It's really high quality infrastructure. Actually, it's mainline steel. We have no bridges. But anyways, how we came about is this is a big grain, very good grain producing part of the world here in East Central Alberta. In 2003, the last of the elevators was closed on our rail line, and the abandonment process was beginning. The local farmers here banded together to create what they called the Battle River Producer Car Group, and so they worked with the CWB at the time, and I guess the Grain Commission, to order large blocks of cars, so 50 plus blocks of cars, producer cars to come out at a time, so that CN would do a train run to bring and service them. And that continued for about 6 years. And then in 2000, don't know the exact dates, but I think around 2009, CN finally put in that they were going to discontinue the line and put it up for sale. So the producer car group then morphed into the Battle River Railway, negotiated with CN, purchased the rail line, and we took ownership in June 2010. It's a farmer-owned co-op, a new gen co-op, which is a little different than a standard co-op. It allows for, we have our members, and then we have investment shares as well. So we have investment shares that our members can own only, and we have investment shares that the general public can own as well. As long as you.
So I could invest in Battle River as well.
I think you have to be a resident of Alberta
Okay.
because it's an Alberta based security. But yes, we have lots of community members here, friends and family that own investment shares in Battle River. It's essentially they're lending us money and we pay them back annual dividends. So it's a unique setup. Allowed us to raise the capital required to purchase the rail line. We did have to have some bank debt as well when we first got going. And really the model was producer cars. That we're going to keep moving producer cars. We're going to get more people shipping grain in producer cars. And maybe something else will come about. So I've been involved with the railroad since the beginning and been the general manager here now since 2015 and seen a lot of change to our model, and a lot of growth in our business as well.
Okay, so suffice it to say it's a really important tool for farmers to use. So let's, for the viewer who's not totally familiar with how Shortlines came about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shortlines came about as a result of the two national railways abandoning small railway spurs into smaller communities. Is that correct? Because it used to be, when I grew up in Manitoba, there was an grain elevator in every small town with a railway spur into that community. But the national railways decided to abandon them. And of course, as you well know, those elevators were closed. They built inland terminals. Farmers had to truck the grain a lot further than they ever had to before. And wherever possible, farmers took up the abandoned rail if they received any kind of cooperation from the national railways. But we can get into that as well. What came first, the abandonment of the short spurs or inland terminals, or did they happen simultaneously?
I think the process of abandonment started before all the inland terminals were built, but definitely the inland terminals hastened the demise of the branch lines in Western Canada. So yeah, what short lines in Western Canada generally came about through all the grain elevators being closed on those rail lines. And once the grain elevators were closed, then really there wasn't any business on the rail on those spurs anymore, or not enough that to justify their existence. At least that's what the class ones would. I don't know. You could think that this was maybe planned when you're the class ones, but through the early 90s and into the early 2000s, there was a lot of this rationalization of the network in Western Canada. So you could argue, and probably correctly, that the rail network in Western Canada was overbuilt. It was built for farmers who could move their grain, maximum 4, 5, 6 miles. So there were stations all along, like along our rail line. Every 4 to 6 miles, there was a station for farmers to haul their grain to, and elevators there. And over time, there gets to be farmers have been, have bigger trucks. They can haul there's fewer farmers around. They can haul their grain further. So the rationalization kind of had a point, but on the other hand, you get rid of a rail line, you lose that infrastructure that's in place for these small communities, and the opportunities that can come with having that infrastructure in place, and you're not going to rebuild these rail lines when future opportunities come about. So now you've just downloaded all the traffic onto the road network, and now the taxpayers, the municipalities get to pay to upkeep their roads instead of having rail.
The sad thing is that what happened is it really increased farmers' costs when it came to trucking their grain to either an elevator or an inland terminal, right? Because they suddenly had to, instead of hauling it 10 miles, they now had to haul it for 100 miles or 50 miles, maybe even further than that in Western Canada. Yet, to the best of my knowledge, the freight cap that the national railways are guaranteed didn't change. So the railways significantly reduced their costs by not having to go to put trains on all of these different spurs. They reduced their cost, and yet it increased the cost for farmers. Tell me something, Matt. Did the national railways, or are they, maybe there's still railway abandonment to this day, but was there collaboration, or did they resist farmers taking up those rail lines? Or using those rail lines, or did they fight to just simply take them up?
Yeah, well, I think if there wasn't the kind of the CTA process for railway abandonment, I believe the class ones would have preferred that the rail lines just didn't exist anymore. They preferred, at the time, anyways, in the late '90s, early 2000s. It's kind of more of a pain in their butt, and to have these short lines generated. But over time, that relationship has changed significantly, and now I think the short lines are seen much more as partners for the class ones than they probably were at the outset. Our founding chairman here at the Battle River Railway, Ken Eschpeter, I remember him saying, "Can you believe those assholes at CN made us buy this rail line?" And to which now I reply, like, "Ken, it was the best thing that ever happened to this rail line is that we got to buy it. Now it's owned locally. We control it. We decide how to run it. We maintain it. We're much more responsive to the businesses and the communities along our rail line than CN could ever be. I mean, that's just the nature of CN being a very large corporation. They are not. Large corporations struggle to listen to small stakeholders. They have their own interests at heart, where we have the interests now of our local communities much more. And, we're not perfect, and we're not here to be a charity either, but, we're rooted here. The rail line has been very successful, has had a lot of positive economic impacts for our local communities. And now we're a partner with CN to grow. And if CN still owned all these branch lines in Western Canada, I would wager that they would be in, or CN and CP, I should say, they would probably be in much worse shape than they are today. And it's been a great thing that the shortline industry has been able to grow and prosper in Western Canada.
Well, there's all kinds of collateral benefits that accrue to communities along the way, isn't there? If that rail line had been abandoned, I mean, you wouldn't have that infrastructure, and you wouldn't have the collateral benefits that come with that infrastructure. How long is the Battle River?
We're only 52 miles from our interchange or change of ownership with CN down to Alliance. It's 52 miles straight line. So we're one of the smaller short lines in Western Canada from a track standpoint. We were one of the last ones to become a short line in Western Canada. Most of the branch lines were before us, and we're kind of lucky in that we don't have nearly the infrastructure deficit that a lot of short lines had. Like most short lines, these are branch lines that were not invested in by the class ones for many years. So they have light rail, they have grade issues, and really the short line operators are trying to get caught up. And we don't have that issue so much here with our heavy 132 pound rail. Lack of curves makes it fairly easy to maintain. It's been, but I mean, just by being here and having a viable business, it creates opportunities for new customers who want to do economic, they want to create a business here that needs rail. They can locate here. We have a couple different shippers who are trying to grow that if the rail line didn't exist, I don't think their business could exist in the locations that they want. They would have to locate somewhere else.
So how many transload sites do you have along that 50 miles?
Well, two, I guess. There, one we do. Oh, can you still hear me? Oh, okay. Some background noise just went away, but I think you can still hear me. Hey, Bob. Oh, could you hear me there, Bob?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So we have our old elevator sidings. There's 6 of them along our rail line, where we have activity happening at 5 of those locations. The activity may be customers who are shipping product out or receiving product in. And at 2 of those, we also own grain elevators at those locations, and we merchandise grain in and out of those elevators as well. So
okay, so how long is the longest short line in Western Canada?
I knew you'd ask me some details, and I don't know the details. I think the longest one is the Great Western in southwestern Saskatchewan, and I'm going to say a number that's going to be wrong, but I'm going to guess 250 miles, something like
okay.
that. But
well, I mean that
could be wrong by quite a bit there.
Don't worry about it. That's even longer than the 80 kilometers you are is fairly significant. And again, it certainly is a boost to the rural infrastructure. So on your short, you were talking about producer cars.
Yeah.
And producer cars are, of course, if I want to ship grain, I can fill my own producer car, and that remains my grain, all the way to the export terminal in Vancouver?
Yeah, until it unloads wherever it goes. The grain landscape has changed a lot in the last 15 years in Western Canada, with the end of the wheat board. The producer cars, on our rail line, we haven't done producer cars for a long time, because where we're located, pretty much everything points west and points to exports. And shipping single cars to an export position really doesn't financially make sense. So even if I could,
Yeah, but those single cars, if I may interrupt, those single cars get merged into the longer trains that the National Railways have. Is that correct? Like, do you not take your cars to a destination and then they're used to complete a longer train that the National Railways already have? Explain how that works.
well, that's a good question, Bob. There's a lot to that. So, and I'm not perfect. I don't know this perfectly, but CN and CP, most of the export grain that they moved, like to terminals, would be moved in grain trains. So that'd be probably trying to do. I think around 9,000 feet trains that go over the mountains. They're going to Vancouver, and in CN's case, they can also go to Prince Rupert, and they'll hit a yard there, and then go into the receiver. Some receivers can take full loops, like G3, and most though take them in smaller blocks as they get unloaded. But the class ones would typically merge either two units together, like if they got two origins that can both load 100 cars, they'd make a 12,000 foot train to go over the mountains. If it's a unit train loader, they'll just take that train and take it over the mountains. Grain, like if it came off my rail line in 5, 10, 15 cars, they'll go onto a manifest train that is going over the mountains that has other small shippers of grain, but other products as well. And so it's kind of two different models of moving that product. I guess it's possible, like if I had 10 cars going to a terminal in Vancouver, that they could try to tack those 10 cars onto an existing grain train going to Vancouver. And they may do that. I don't know, but there's very limited amount of single car traffic that would move to export positions on Vancouver.
Okay, obviously you guys own your own locomotives, right?
Yep, we have 4 SD40-2s. So those are.
What's the price tag of a locomotive?
First one we bought in 2010 was 100,000 Canadian, and I think they're probably worth about 300,000, 350 Canadian today. If you wanted something built in the last 30 years, you're going to pay a lot more than that.
It's actually cheaper than I thought it was. I thought it might be as much as a private jet.
Well, these are not quite 50. Well, coming up on 50-year-old locomotives. So they're obviously not new. If you wanted to buy a new locomotive, you're in the millions of dollars for sure.
Yeah. Now, so to understand it a little bit better, along your 80-kilometer route, do all the farmers use your short line, or are there still farmers that truck long distances to an inland terminal?
Our area is very competitive. We have we're ringed by a lot of the inland terminals, and there's a canola crush plant as well nearby. So to answer your question, we have to compete for the grain every day if we want to buy it, whether they're our members or not. And farmers there's varying degrees of loyalty. Some will try their darndest to sell us their grain, and some will only sell us their grain if we are the top bidder for their grain on that day. Of course, differing freight economics come into play depending on how close they are to us versus the competitor. So we do have a freight advantage in a lot of situations, but we still have to provide a competitive price, competitive customer service to to growers in order to get them to sell their grain to us.
Yeah, so if I'm a grain farmer along your route, it may be that I could be closer to an inland terminal than I might be to where you actually load your cars. But typically, if I'm using a short line and I'm loading my grain into one of your cars, by the time that grain gets to the port in Vancouver, I have more money in my pocket than a guy that's delivered to an inland terminal. Is that correct?
Typically, yeah. If you're gonna sell to us, it's usually because it makes you more dollars and cents to sell to us. There's not a lot. So the increase.
But sorry,
Go
but
ahead.
wait a minute. So I sell the grain to you?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's then the difference between a producer car and not a producer car. I deliver the grain to wherever you load it. You purchase the grain, and you're the one. Do you then sell it to an export company in Vancouver, or do you actually sell it to the final destination?
Yeah, we don't do any overseas sales ourselves. We're selling it to, we call it tract buyers. So actually, for the past number of years, the vast majority of the grain we ship off our rail line is either going to domestic flour mills or going to then be transloaded at Vancouver into ocean shipping containers for export. If you're going to ship to an export terminal, the margins are very tight, and you need to be using at least 100 car economics to make that make sense. So so what I mean by that is the railways have a discounted freight rate when you ship in 100 car blocks. Where for CN it's 100, CP 112, and then I think they both have increased discounts when you do like for loop loaders who load 150 cars at a time. And in order to sell grain to those customer or to those places, if you're not utilizing those freight economics, you're going to lose money in the process for what you have to pay for the grain versus what you could get for it at Vancouver. It's a negative margin to do that. So, and that's why, when we came out of the wheat board world, our first model was essentially brokering producer cars between our growers and buyers at port. And then in the 2013, 2014 kind of rail crisis, there was lots of buyers who would buy these cars because everyone was short on grain at port, and short on the means of getting it there, short on freight, being able to have access to rail cars to get it from the country to the port. So we had a couple, our biggest grain years ever in 2013 and 2014. We moved about 2,200 rail cars of grain both those years, and we thought we were really onto something. And then 2015 came, we had a smaller crop, and our volumes plummeted. And we have never got back to the point where there's buyers at Vancouver who are actively looking to buy anything other than trains worth of grain. So the only places you do that are now container stuffers at Vancouver, or domestics, or you're moving stuff into the States or Mexico. And where we're located geographically, the grain just wants to go to the West Coast because it's the cheapest freight option. There's a lot of grain between us and the United States, like grain out of Manitoba, southern Saskatchewan, is going to move into the States or into Mexico way cheaper than grain out of my part of Alberta.
So if you've got a grain farm, let's say you had a guy come in and buy a farm close to your road, what are the three top advantages you would tell that farmer he or she would have if they join your short line to ship their grain?
Well, you're going to have, our key selling feature to our farmers is our location. So yes, we are closer to you for hauling. We provide convenience for you for hauling as well, because we are, we do a really good job of customer service. We manage, we try to make it so you're never waiting in line. You receive your payments promptly from us. And the last piece of why you should become a member is something that's unique well, I think fairly unique in Western Canada, is that we are a co-op, and when we're profitable, we distribute a good chunk of our profits back to our members through patronage. So our members have been earning multiple dollars per ton, like up to $10 a ton, off of their whenever they've been delivering grain to us in the past. And that is something that you're not going to get delivering grain to a line company. They are not in the business of sharing their profits with their farmers. They're in the business of sharing the profit with their shareholders. For us, our farmers are our shareholders, essentially.
Tell me, as far as the Railway Association is concerned, what role does the association have? Do you lobby the government for particular regulations or to eliminate any kind of regulations? What's your main focus there when it comes to collaborating with both levels of government?
Yeah, so that's a really big part of what our association does. We try to get to Ottawa at least once a year, try to maybe twice a year. We're meeting with Transport Canada is a big organization, lots of different levels. There's the regulatory safety side, there's innovation, there's policy. There's lots that we need to meet with there. And then on the provincial side as well, we have 4 different provincial governments to deal with. So we are advocating all the time for support for the industry. On the regulation side, we have found it very important that the regulators know about shortlines, know about Western Canadian shortlines, and how we are unique from the class ones. So a lot of times in the past, we've seen regulations get written that kind of fit for how a class one does their operations. But then it's very onerous for a small outfit like our members to be able to comply with these regulations, and they're not helping improve our level of safety either. So taking that message to the regulator has been very important for us, and we've had a lot of success. Actually, they've listened, and now I think we've dodged. I don't know if dodge bullets, but we've had success anyways of the regulators doing some carve outs, saying this is how the class ones. We're going to require this from the class ones, but if you're below this certain size, these regulations won't apply to you.
Well, and the worst thing that can happen is if governments decide to implement regulations that haven't been run by the shortline railways, right? I mean, you're impacted, but you had no opportunity to input. And in fact, it was Jack Wilkinson that said in a podcast that the one thing that ticked him off the most was that governments don't have a clue on how to consult effectively. But there's one thing, if you're working with 3 provincial governments, boy, you can have a lot of clout. If you can get those provincial governments to agree on something that you've talked to them about, now you've got a lot of leverage. Who's your go-to minister in Ottawa for this? Would be the transportation minister, I guess. I mean, we used to have ministers once in a while that understood agriculture and understood transportation. Do you feel that the bureaucracy now and the ministers understand what you're up against? I've said this before and I'll say it again. There are those that know, and there are those that don't know, and they know that they don't know. But there are those that don't know, and they don't know that they don't know. And those are the problem.
Yeah, those are dangerous.
They're dangerous.
Yeah.
So are you getting a level of understanding?
We have a very, very strong relationship with the bureaucracy in Ottawa, with Transport Canada, now and all the way up to like the deputy minister levels. Now, for me, it seems like we've had a lot of different ministers over the past 5 years. Ministers of transport seems to change regularly, and I wouldn't say we've had any success at the ministerial levels, but just below that, getting up to the DM levels, we've had success. There's some continuity there, and we're able to build relationships, tell our story, and have them understand who we are, and have had programs tailored specifically for the shortline industry. We've been very successful. We've been very good at getting funding kind of industry-wide in Western Canada for various different projects. We would still love to see a dedicated funding source for just regular maintenance on short lines. So whether that's kind of maybe a per mile grant or a tax credit per mile, something like that acknowledges that these short lines do provide a bit of like almost public good, where they're relieving stress from the road network in Western Canada, and that we think the government does have a bit of a role to help support them. And so far, it's been mostly like more ad hoc projects based support, and you need to kind of come with a fairly big project. Then we're going to upgrade our line from 268,000 pounds to 286, and it's going to be this many $1 million. Okay, maybe you can get support for that. But we can't. What would really help the industry is just a bankable commitment from the levels of government that there's this financial support in place for regular maintenance. So that's ties, ballast. That's just keeping the infrastructure up to grade, up to snuff, and that in the United States has a grant program or a tax credit program. I think it's called the 45G, which has been super successful in driving private investment into short lines, because they know that there's kind of that consistent backing of government funding towards the industry, rather than grants that you may win, you may lose, and you don't know if you're going to be successful on the next one. Something that's bankable. That's what we're really after. Kind of got off from where you asked me, Bob, but
no, that's great. You know, and I think you make a very, very good point, and I think that's a great place to start pounding the table when it comes to governments, because certainly there is enough corporate memory in all levels of government to recognize that first of all, you're dealing with two national railways. It's effectively a monopoly. It is a duopoly, but effectively it's a monopoly, because if one does one thing, then the other one will do the same thing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's effectively a monopoly. So that's got to be recognized by governments. It's got to be recognized by governments that there was a lot of rationalization when it came to grain elevators and farmers having to truck their grain a lot further than they ever used to. You're up against multinational grain companies who are nothing but a cost-plus marketer. And so I would think both levels of government would recognize that whatever little empowerment tool you can build for farmers, and in this case, it's actually not little anymore, it's really grown in size, that's a short line rail. We know. I've got grain farmer friends in Western Canada tell me that freight is now one of their highest costs of productions on a per bushel or per acre basis. And so governments have got to realize that farmers need all the help they can get, and they can do a lot of this without it being a direct subsidy, right? They can, as you say, help with infrastructure. They can help regulate the industry in such a way that national railways have to collaborate. So I think that's a really, really good message for government. So And we're running out of time, but so what you're saying is the national railways now have grown to consider short lines as a way of life, and so collaboration has improved. Short lines are an important empowerment tool for grain farmers in Western Canada. Short lines have made communities, rural communities, more robust because it has kept the rail infrastructure in the communities. There's economic activity, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all great advantages that shortline rails add to, great benefits that shortline railways add to the community. Is there anything else you would like to add, Matt?
You did a pretty good job there summarizing, Bob. I maybe just like the shortline industry in Western Canada has been around now for about 20, 25 years. Well, some would argue, some for a lot longer than that, but like in its current iteration, it's been around for about 20 years. And we're at this, as an industry, we're at the phase where, we've done the surviving, and now we're into the growth phase as an industry. And there's a lot of opportunity here in shortline industries, shortline railway, and government support would go a long ways to helping us realize the potential. It's not that we can't continue to grow without government support, but we do think we have a very good story to tell, and that there's compelling reasons why government should want to support this industry.
Well, I think I'll never forget, and this happened quite a few years ago, and I think there must have been a railway strike or something. Well, it had something to do with, it had to do with the freight issue, I believe. And I was at a grain growers convention in Ottawa, and a parliamentary secretary to either the transportation minister or the agricultural minister got up in front of the group of grain producers, grain farm leaders, and suggested that maybe governments should subsidize the national railways more. And I couldn't believe my ears. I'm thinking, these railways make billions of dollars every year for their shareholders. The last thing they need is any kind of subsidies. But government certainly could, without it even looking like a subsidy, help shortline rail. One last question, Matt. Is there any more are there any more rail lines to be abandoned?
Well, I think there was Genesee and Wyoming just created a short line here in central Alberta near Red Deer. It wasn't really an abandonment, but they took over a piece of track from CP that CP was still using, but I think the industry has changed, and the Class 1's outlook on short lines has changed to the point where they're like looking for opportunities where maybe a piece of track would be better suited to be operated by a short line operator rather than themselves. And that CN, I know CN because I've dealt with them. In the past, they might have an attitude of like, we're CN, we're the best. No one can do this better than we can. And I think they've had to come to an understanding that there's situations that are better suited for short lines, and so we may see more short lines being created in Western Canada, just for more of those opportunities. I'm not aware of any like branch lines that are just going to go poof, and that the railways would rather see them go away. I think it's just more like maybe we can transition these to a short line rather than being operated by the Class 1. I think that a lot comes down to I guess I don't know exactly. I assume there's a piece of that comes down to like flexibility around labor. I think the Class 1s are having a hard time finding enough labor to do what they need to do, and that being able to kind of not offshore, but like take some of that work, the switching stuff, and hand that over to short lines who can be a little more nimble, and let the Class 1s focus on what they're really good at, which is running their cross-national networks in a highly efficient manner, keeping their costs down. They have a lot of experience with that and have done a very good job of being very profitable. Yeah. I don't,
All right, well,
I don't
thank
think
you.
they need subsidies, though.
No. Thank you very much, Matt, for being a guest, talking to us about Shortline Railways. I got to ask you one. Well, you can go back and work on your golf game now, or maybe we should both go back and work on our golf game. Thanks for coming on as a guest, Matt. And to the viewer, remember, if you've eaten today, thank a farmer. And hopefully we'll talk again soon. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Bob.